Hey, Service Advisor Nation, welcome back to another episode of the AutoFix Advisor Cast with your host, Michale Doherty. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everybody's healthy. And thank you for taking the time out of your day or evening to listen to this episode. Something that keeps coming up with shops that I'm speaking to is phone skills. And it's something that I've previously talked about, but it's always an evolving topic, right? So one thing I wanted to talk to Service Advisor Nation today was about, for first time callers to your shop, how do we build value and offer an experience, right? I mean, I think that's an important thing to consider. Again, building value and offering an experience, not just selling a service. Because if we can build an experience, then that is what's going to get clients coming back. So I guess first and foremost, just clarifying, when somebody is a first time client and they're calling your shop, they're not just inquiring about your services. I mean, it's kind of an audition if you think about it. And, those are things that we're going to go over today and talk about during this episode. So, oftentimes, and I've always felt like this, it's our responsibility as service advisors to really kind of invite the client in. And what I mean by that is, right, it's your tonality when you're on the phone with them for their first time experience. It's asking the questions, hey, have you been with us before? Or if they say no, I'm a current client. Hey, welcome back. Glad you're on the phone, right? Smiling through the phone, right? We use that term a lot, but what does it mean, right? I mean, you're not interfacing with them. It's not a Zoom call. They're not in person. So, smiling through the phone again is just your tonality. You're being upbeat. We want to send the signal that, we're inviting, we're excited, but we don't want to sound rushed. That's the last thing somebody wants to feel on the other end of that phone is that we're rushing them to get through. And have I been guilty of that before? Yeah, God's honest truth. Absolutely. Sure. I didn't get my mind right before I picked up the phone to answer that phone call. And it could have been a first time customer. It could have been an existing customer. But point being, when that phone rings, you kind of got to do a mindset shift, right? You got to kind of just switch over and take a deep breath. And, it's kind of like, if you think about it, right, you know, I'm sure everybody's been to some sort of concert before in their life, a rock concert, a rap concert, a country concert, just music concerts in general, right? And think about it like this, there are performers that, they go from town to town, show to show, if not every day, every other day for, 200 days out of the year. But when they get to that city or that town, that experience, right? I mean, it's the same songs that they're singing. It's not the same crowd usually, but it's the same songs, it's the same lyrics. It's a repeat process, but you know, how do they make you feel, right, when you're there? They make you feel like it's your own private concert, that it's just for you. And if they're a professional, that's how it should come through. So you want to go continue to buy their music. So you want to go see them again in concert, right? It's building the experience. And that's what it should be about for us as well on the service advisor side, is building that experience, right, for new clients calling in. So something too that I think is important to talk about is, how do we get there? So again, we talked about, right, smiling to the phone. It's pretty, evident, but, also early in that conversation, right, in that first 10 to 15 seconds, kind of establishing, you know, who you are, that they're calling the right place, and get their name, right? Hey, thanks for calling XYZ Automotive. This is Michael. Who would I have the pleasure of speaking with today? How may I help you? And get their name, right? I mean, when you're using somebody's name in an upbeat and, professional tonality, it's a psychology thing, right? I mean, it's again, it's kind of mirroring, right? I mean, it makes, when you hear your name, you feel good, right? I don't know why that is, but it's like when someone's talking to you and they keep mentioning your name throughout the phone call, so John, just to confirm, we've got you set up for this time and this date to bring in your XYZ vehicle. That's great. John, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you next week, right? I mean, they get off the phone. It's not kind of just again, using their name is really important. And one thing too, I think that's going to be important to talk about is, building value before price comes up. And we do get those clients sometimes that call and say, "Hey, I just need a price," right? Well, it depends. Where's your car? What's going on with the vehicle? Is the car currently somewhere? Is it broken down? What's going on? Again, qualifying questions. But again, building value before price comes up, and kind of what's that look like, right? It's again in that first 10 seconds when they're calling, smiling through the phone, identifying who you are, the shop that you're representing, and again, get their name and how can I help you. But also in that, somewhere in that first 10 to probably 20, 30 seconds of that phone call, building value in your business, right? Hey, we're proud to be the we got voted for an award. I don't know how else to say it. We're the city's number one auto shop, 2 years in a row. If you've got any awards to talk about, you don't have to elaborate on everything, but just keeping it brief. But again, letting them know, hey, we do community support. We offer a 36 warranty, whatever your warranty is, right? We provide shuttle service, right? Just a couple different things right off the bat that's building value to let them know about, that you think are maybe the top two, three, or four things in that first 10 to 20 or 30 seconds of the phone call, right? And that'll kind of go a long way, right? Also, things to mention, right? I mean, hey, we offer digital inspections with photos, complimentary shuttle service, and, we've got awesome warranties. Our warranties beat the dealer all day, every day, right? And say it with confidence, right? So again, you're building that experience for them. And inviting questions as well, because they're going to start telling you what's going on with their vehicle. So, hey, tell me a little bit more about what's going on in your vehicle, or, again, if you can tell with people too, they're shopping around, and it's not always about price. They want to make sure that they're finding the right shop that resonates with them. And out of maybe there's no guarantee that you're the first shop they've called today, right? If they're a new client, it could be a second, third, fourth, fifth. I've had people call before, and then they literally call right back and they act like they didn't call you, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll cross you off my list, I've already talked to you." So I've had that happen a couple of times. But in any event, right? So I mean, hey, I mean, hit them with a question, right? I mean, what's most important to you when it comes to choosing a shop to help you, right? I mean, and again, they're going to talk. Take note. And again, also asking those, I wouldn't call them open-ended questions, but asking those questions also kind of keeps you in control of the conversation, but also makes them feel heard and valued, right? Because I've had some clients before where there's kind of that dead silence, you know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds of just dead silence, and that's not good. And then, obviously still, right, talking about price when someone's calling, talking about price, man, validating, right? Hey, that's a great question, but also, I completely understand wanting to know the investment up front, but right, and continuing through what you're letting them know, building value in your brand, in your shop. And I think that's really important. So again, just building value and offering an experience, and just instead of just selling a service, right? So there's a lot of different factors that go into that. you know I wouldn't say there's no obligation, but especially when talking with people too, right? We love the opportunity to earn your business. Would be a great time to bring your vehicle in, and keeping in mind too. I mean, not everybody's going to be your client, and that's okay. And that will be probably figured out not too long into the phone call, right? And again, I've had a lot of shops lately that have really just kind of had not so great experiences with their front end, with phones, phone relations, phone skills. And reason for that, I'm helping shops out with doing some of their automotive marketing. And part of that is letting them know that there's a handoff, right? That handoff is, we're going to do our best to do the marketing for you to get the phones to ring. But the handoff is, once the phone rings, you've got to be able to convert that lead to an appointment and get them in the shop. And I think a lot of shops too aren't listening to their calls. They're not recording them. They're not playing them back. I mean, it's kind of like a sports athlete, right? I mean, after the game, there's some athletes that I think go above and beyond to watch tape, right? They're going to rewatch their performance and see key areas that maybe they could have made a better decision, or not a better decision, but basically just kind of looked at, hey, how was my performance? How would I rate myself? Could I have done better? Did I make a mistake? And again, it's okay. We all make mistakes, right? But I think at the end of the day, right, the best way to do that is for service advisors is if you've got a second service advisor, there's two of you there, you know, pick out a time during the week, 20 minutes, 30 minutes out of the whole week, and role play. I mean, one person be the service advisor, the other person act like you're the client. And the best way to do that is to practice, it's to role play. And the more that you practice, the more that you practice, the more that you practice, when game time comes, which is when it's a real client calling your shop, you're going to be prepared. You're going to be ready. I think the shops that are willing to do that, again, we'll call it a mock call. Again, call your coworker on the cell phone, call them on the work line, right? But again, and listen to how you did, grade yourself, rate yourself, but practice. And if you don't have a second service advisor, ask the shop owner, ask a technician, ask a shop manager. Somebody there is going to be able to help you. And again, a good way to do that is to role play. And again, take 20, 30 minutes a week and do that role play and kind of perfect your craft, right? Doesn't have to be scripted. I mean, there are parts of it that probably will be, which is definitely fine. But again, the practice part of it, right? Get a coach, get a practice partner. There's shops out there that offer coaching for service advising. I know that the AutoFix group does. That is part of the sponsor for this podcast, AutoFix, with Chris Cotton and WorldPack as well. So there's multiple. There's a lot of resources out there for help with phone skills. But again, just the mental thought process of, right, we're not just selling work. You know, Especially with a new client, we want to build value. We want to offer an experience, and that's what's going to keep them coming back. So again, tonality right before that phone rings, slow it down in your head, just kind of take a deep breath. And when you pick up the phone, right, don't sound rushed. When you sound rushed, it's going to make the client feel like they're not important. And again, I go back to the analogy of like the rock concert or the music concert, right? When you're in that venue, knowing that band is getting ready to pack up and go to the next state or the next town to do the show all over again, but they're going to give the crowd the same energy, the same enthusiasm time and time again. And that's what's going to keep their longevity of being an artist. So yeah, I think, we're artists, right? As service advisors, right? We want to create that experience, that personal experience and get them coming back as a client. So again, just some tips, some recommendations for some phone skills. But Service Advisor Nation, again, I really appreciate you. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the AutoFix Advisor Cast, and keep those bays full. And hope you have a great upcoming week. And thank you so much. All right. See you later.